Right now, your body is running a pain system that is over 500 million years old, older than bones, older than teeth. And here's the problem. That ancient system was built for a world that no longer exists. There is a technique used by monks, battlefield surgeons, and elite athletes that can reduce pain by up to 40% without swallowing a single pill. And the wild part? The science behind it is hiding inside your own nervous system, waiting for you to figure out the switch. You know that moment. Maybe it's a headache that showed up uninvited at 2 a.m. Maybe it's a back that decided today was the day to stop cooperating. The first thing you do is reach for ibuprofen or paracetamol or whatever is closest. And for a while that works. But what if the pill is only part of the story? What if your brain already contains a built-in pain relief system, one that, under the right conditions, is more powerful than most over-the-counter drugs? And what if the ancient world figured this out thousands of years before we had chemistry labs? Hold that thought, because we need to understand what pain actually is first. And the answer is not what most people think. Pain is not damage. Pain is a decision. Your brain receives a signal from your body. Something is wrong here. And then it decides how much that is going to hurt. That decision is influenced by stress, by fear, by how much attention you're paying, and by your expectations. Two people can have the exact same injury and feel completely different levels of pain. That is not weakness or strength. That is neuroscience. In 1965, researchers Ronald Melzack and Patrick Wall published something called gate control theory. Their idea was simple and completely revolutionary. Your nervous system has a gate in the spinal cord. Signals can travel through that gate to reach your brain and become pain, or the gate can be closed, and the signal gets blocked before it arrives. The gate can be closed by non-painful touch, by pressure, by movement. And here is the ancient trick. By stimulating specific points on the skin with heat, pressure, or fine needles. You know it today as acupuncture, but the real story goes much deeper than needles. People have been stimulating specific points on the body to relieve pain for at least 5,000 years. The Egyptians used it. The ancient Greeks used it. Ötzi the Iceman, the 5,300-year-old frozen body found in the Alps, had tattoo marks on his skin that correspond almost exactly to acupuncture points used today to treat the kind of joint pain his remains showed he had. Let that land for a moment. For millennia, this was written off as folk medicine. Then in the 1970s, researchers at Johns Hopkins discovered something that changed the conversation entirely. When acupuncture needles enter specific points, the brain releases endorphins. The same molecules triggered by intense exercise, laughter, and certain drugs. Your brain floods itself with its own natural painkillers. But the question nobody was asking was this: why those specific points? Why does a needle in your foot relieve pain in your lower back? Why does pressure on your wrist reduce nausea? The map the ancients drew, which they had no tools to explain, turned out to match the pathways of the nervous system with an accuracy that should not have been possible 5,000 years ago. And here's the philosophical pivot that changes everything. You have been in pain before. And in some situations, during an emergency, during a race, in a moment of absolute focus, the pain disappeared. Not because the injury healed, but because your brain decided for right now, pain is not useful. It prioritized something else. That choice happens constantly below your awareness. The question is, can you learn to influence it? Here is where it gets genuinely strange. In 2012, a meta-analysis published in the Archives of Internal Medicine reviewed 29 clinical trials involving nearly 18,000 patients. They found that acupuncture consistently outperformed sham treatments, and in some categories of chronic pain, back pain, neck pain, osteoarthritis, headache, it outperforms standard drug therapy, not by a little, by a statistically meaningful margin. The most powerful painkiller in some of those trials was not ibuprofen. It was a technique that involves no chemistry. Just precise stimulation of points your ancestors mapped by hand thousands of years ago without understanding why it worked. And you don't even need a clinic. Researchers at Harvard and the University of Michigan found that acupressure, pressing those same points with your fingers, activates many of the same neural pathways. The Li4 point, the soft web of flesh between your thumb and index finger, has been used for 3,000 years to reduce headaches. Studies published in peer-reviewed journals confirm it works. You can do it right now. No prescription, no side effects, no pill. Think about what this actually means. Across 5,000 years, across dozens of civilizations that never spoke to each other, across cultures that had completely different explanations for why it worked, the technique survived. Not because of tradition, because it worked well enough that people kept choosing it. Modern medicine has given us extraordinary tools. But somewhere in our rush toward chemistry, we stopped asking whether our bodies already contain some of the answers. The nervous system that is running inside you right now is not a passive receiver. It is an active, intelligent filter, one that ancient practitioners understood better in some ways than we give them credit for. Your pain is real, but it is also in part a story your brain tells. And like all stories, with the right knowledge, it can be rewritten. So tonight, if something hurts, try pressing that point between your thumb and finger for 30 seconds. Notice what happens. Maybe nothing. Maybe something shifts. But here's the thought I want you to carry. If 5,000 years of humans across every continent independently discovered the same map of the body, what else did they figure out that we're still catching up to? The ancients weren't primitive. They were paying attention.